From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. Colombia's social Minga leaders and the Colombian government reached an agreement on Saturday night. Representatives of the indigenous, campesino, and Afro-descendant communities said that they reached a compromise on issues such as human rights, peace, territory, education, and health, among others. The government and leaders also agreed that a monetary fund should be created for indigenous people. The communities held protests for almost a month, demanding that the government fulfill a series of agreements.
I want to inform the indigenous, campesino, and Afro-descendant people that on Saturday night, we reached an agreement with the government in areas such as peace, human rights, land, and the environment. We also agreed to the reinforcement of the guard and the fund grant for indigenous people. I also want to say that we are continuing with the social Minga, and after the Minga mobilizations, we will continue to call for a national strike.
On Sunday, Colombian President Iván Duque finally arrived to the city of Popayán in the Cauca department as demanded by the protesters, not to meet the Minga leaders, but representatives of the unions affected by the road blockades of the Minga. After being ignored, the protesters announced they will again block several roads as part of the ongoing protest against the government. They also said that since there's no peace and social leaders are still being murdered, they will organize a national strike. After that, Duque announced he will meet with indigenous communities on Tuesday and said his government is open to seeking solutions through dialogue. A Saudi-led coalition airstrike near a school in Yemen's capital Sana'a has killed at least 13 civilians. Nearly 90 others were wounded. Most of the victims were students at an all-girls middle school. Many of them were killed or seriously injured after a stampede, which was triggered by the blast.
We went back to the classroom after the break. Then the enemy aircraft dropped the bomb and everyone wanted to run home. I saw 4 or 5 people trampled to death and 11 injured. It was very noisy and crowded in the school. People were running over the bodies and those who fell. And then I came to the hospital, and many of us here feel some tightness in our chest.
Meanwhile, the health ministry in Sana'a has declared a state of emergency following the latest cholera outbreak. According to official statistics, 327 cholera-related deaths and more than 160,000 cases of infection or suspected infection have been confirmed. Over 30% of the cholera cases are among children. Since April 2017, there have been 2 severe cholera epidemics in Yemen, killing more than 3,000 people. Yemen's 4-year civil war has been blamed for causing the epidemic.
This horrifying outbreak started more than 3 weeks ago on a very large scale. Our center has been working 24 hours a day, and we are doing everything we can to treat patients from various provinces. The direct cause of the epidemic is water and food contamination, caused by the overall environmental pollution.
In other news, Israel is set to go to the polls on Tuesday, April 9th, for legislative elections. The vote can be seen as a referendum on support for long-serving Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Netanyahu's Likud party appears to be trailing the Blue and White Party, led by former Army Chief Benny Gantz. However, a poll published on Friday indicated that the far-right nationalist bloc, including Likud, is leading the race for the Knesset. Netanyahu has been embroiled in corruption scandals since December 2016 and remains under investigation. And just prior to the polls opening, Prime Minister Netanyahu has pledged to annex Jewish settlements in the West Bank. The move could be construed as a cynical appeal to the right-wing nationalist voters. However, the Israeli PM has long supported expansionist policies and dismissed the rights of the Palestinian people.
So his declaration is not just in the heat of electoral or electioneering campaigns. It is a statement of determination and policy. He is going to annex the settlements, all of the settlements. He's going to maintain his control over the Jordan Valley and annex it. And he's going to place the Palestinians in what he calls population centers, but under Israeli security, and he's going to maintain his illegal annexation of Jerusalem. This is the end of any chances of peace.
Israeli settlements in the West Bank are considered a violation of international law and a major impediment to any peace process between Israel and Palestine. And Israeli armed forces conducted a raid overnight in the occupied West Bank in which they detained the brother of Palestinian resistance icon Ahed Tamimi. His brother, 15-year-old Basim Tamimi, was taken from his family home in the village of Nabi Sali near Ramallah. The incident was recorded and posted to his mother's Facebook page, who said that the Israeli army is trying to break the will of her family. Israel is yet to provide a reason for his detention. And Palestinian prisoners have announced a hunger strike to protest their deplorable conditions along with genocidal violence. The action will be held to protest against the deteriorating situation in various Israeli prisons. Negotiations with Israeli authorities are ongoing on this matter. Meanwhile, dozens of Palestinians gather in Ramallah to show solidarity with the Palestinian prisoners in Israeli prisons. We have more stories coming up. We'll be back.
Who's moving the chessmen? What interests motivate the actors behind each event?
Se despliega el tablero.
Uncritical Moves investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Libya's government of national accord has announced an operation called the Volcano of Anger. This operation is designed to defend the capital, Tripoli, against Libyan National Army forces which are approaching. Military officers loyal to General Khalifa Haftar have advanced from the east with the aim of taking Tripoli. The Prime Minister has accused Haftar of attempting to carry out a coup. He says rebels will be met with force. From the time the so-called moderate rebels, who were backed by the US and NATO, overthrew Muammar Gaddafi, the country has been in turmoil. It has been severely divided since NATO's intervention, and many believed is on the verge of a civil war.
We are pledging to our people that we will preserve the civil state. We are inviting the delusional and brainwashed to surrender their weapons. The battle is over, and we will not allow the militarization of the nation. Libya will not be a military state. Its military will only have loyalty to God and then the nation.
And as the situation in Libya intensifies, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has called for a peaceful settlement and increased efforts by the UN Security Council to create a dialogue between rival parties. Lavrov made the remarks at a joint press conference with his Egyptian counterpart, Sameh Shoukry, in Cairo. He blamed NATO for the current crisis, saying the bloc's 2011 campaign in Libya resulted in terrorism, illegal immigration, and other issues in the country.
We call on all Libyan parties to start a dialogue without preconditions. We are still in contact with the Libyan forces, with Major General Khalifa Haftar and with Prime Minister al-Sarraj, and we express our concern to the UN Security Council about the crisis and war against the Libyan army. And we call for an end to these clashes, and parties should start negotiating.
Thousands of Sudanese protesters demonstrated overnight, calling on President Omar al-Bashir to step down. However, al-Bashir has refused to do so, alluding that his opponents need to seek power through the ballot box. Police have used tear gas and stun grenades to disperse the protesters as they continued chanting, "Sudan is rising, the army is rising." Rwanda's president said that the country has become a family once again while marking the 25th anniversary of the genocide that killed about 800,000 people. Paul Kagame lit a remembrance flame in the capital, Kigali. Rwandans will mourn for 100 days. That's equivalent to the time it took for about a tenth of the country to be massacred in 1994. Most of those killed were minority Tutsis and moderate Hutus. Attackers were of the ethnic Hutu forces. This crime was not without colonial roots. It was a continuation of a pattern of hostility installed by the Belgians.
1994, there was no hope, only darkness. Today, light radiates from this place. Our bodies and minds bear amputations and scars, but none of us is alone. Together, we have woven the tattered threads of our unity into a new tapestry.
The Tunisian president has announced that he will not be running for re-election in November, despite his party calling him to do so. The 93-year-old Beji Caid Essebsi says the time has come to pave the way for someone younger. However, the 2014 constitution gives him the right to run for 2 terms. Essebsi won the first free presidential elections following the 2011 revolution that toppled Zine Abidine Ben Ali, who ruled for 23 years. Malawi's president has vowed to fight corruption and poverty if given a second term to rule. Speaking as he launched his party manifesto ahead of the May 21st election, Peter Mutharika said he is committed to creating jobs. Mutharika faces tough opposition from his former vice president, Saulo Chilima. Chilima quit the ruling party to form the United Transformation Movement. And a new and promising party has officially entered South Africa's politics. The Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party launched in Johannesburg over the weekend. It will contest next month's general elections. The political organization says that it represents the working class.
It started as a slow day as members of the Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party made their way to this venue in eastern Johannesburg. The program officially kicked off with a song and dance. Shortly after, delegates deliberated intensely before the party's leadership was elected.
We decided that we want a general meeting in Rustenburg is to take everybody.
Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party chairperson Irvin Jim outlined the problems his organization seeks to solve.
We're talking about 30.4 million South Africans today with absolutely no plate of food. Poverty is rife, unemployment and inequalities.
The Independent Electoral Commission has confirmed nearly 27 million South Africans are registered to vote. That's over half of the population. This gives the Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party a fighting chance to win the hearts and minds of South Africans who are frustrated by problems like inequality. But it won't be easy, as other political parties are also sharpening their swords. Some of these organizations include the fast-growing Economic Freedom Fighters, which has also positioned itself as a socialist party for the jobless.
Our main mission is to unite both the working class organized working class and the unemployed and the peasants in the villages, in the rural areas. And what is our agenda? We of the view that this party will succeed by pursuing a revolutionary agenda.
Perhaps that success will be driven by the party's mother body, the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa. It is among the biggest trade unions in the country and will want to ensure its members vote for its political wing, the Socialist Revolutionary Workers' Party.
We're taking one last break. Stay with us.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transformed the world today. On Monday, only on Venezuela.
Welcome back. The Ministry of Health in Barbados is preparing a document to take to Cabinet, which will provide free health care to CARICOM nationals who reside in the country. This was revealed by the Health and Wellness Minister. He made the announcement as he delivered the feature address at the opening of the World Health Day activity organized by the Pan American Health Organization. The theme of World Health Day was Universal Health, Everyone, Everywhere. Bostic said that this was consistent with the policy goals of the Barbados government, which prioritizes providing universal access to high-quality healthcare.
So that we will have a policy in relation to the treatment or providing the provision of healthcare for all CARICOM residents, whether or not they are skilled nationals who reside in Barbados, because we believe strongly that a threat to public health does not only come from those who call themselves Barbadians, but from all those who live, work, reside, and even pass through here on cruise ships.
Women in the Dominican Republic have celebrated International Health Day with a large bike ride. Women cycled for 5 kilometers in a march that took place in the capital, Santo Domingo. The event was planned by the Women's Ministry under the slogan, Cycling for Your Health. The goal was made to bring attention to the importance of exercise in the fight against certain diseases and to stay healthy. Coral reefs, one of the most biologically diverse ecosystems, are essential for ecotourism and livelihoods in coastal communities around the world. They are under increasing threat. Our correspondent in St. Lucia, Alison Kentish, reports about a local project to stop the destruction of reefs.
Worldwide, coral reefs are being destroyed by pollution and overfishing. In St. Lucia, the Sandals Foundation has teamed up with partners that include the Fisheries Department to undertake reef restoration. The project involves the planting of coral fragments on underwater trees in a coral nursery. Environmental officer at the Sandals Foundation, Bianca Young, is one of 2 divers who recently assessed developments at the nursery, which is located in the southern Soufra Marine Management Area, St. Lucia's largest marine protected space. Reefs are important for small-scale fishing and St. Lucia's ecotourism offerings, and the project hopes to ensure that the ecosystems can continue to provide food and livelihoods to communities. Young says fusing coral fragments onto the reef is a tried and proven technique for reef restoration.
This coral restoration project is vital to the coral ecosystem here in St. Lucia, but also within the Caribbean and around the world. And the technique that is being used is very successful, and we're seeing success rates in the 95% percentile range. That means the coral that is actually propagated, it's surviving once it's being outplanted onto the reef, and it is creating an atmosphere and an environment for juvenile fish, for instance, and to be able to have an environment where they can grow and support tourism as well as fisheries.
Fisheries biologist Alena Joseph says coral reefs are home to hundreds of organisms, protect coastlines, and provide recreational opportunities for countries dependent on tourism.
We recognize the importance of our corals to fisheries, not only to our fishers, but also to divers and persons utilizing the marine environment. So ensuring that our corals are healthy through restorative activities, through coral nurseries, will augur well in terms of fulfilling the priorities within the Department of Fisheries.
In the last decade, coral bleaching and climate change events such as more frequent and intense storms have also taken a toll on the reefs. The partners are hoping that this project will underscore the importance of healthy coastal environments to human life and spur ongoing support for sustainable conservation of coral reefs. Alison Kentish, Telesur, St. Lucia.
Sunday marked 1 year since the jailing of Brazil's former president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Mobilizations were held across the country. Lula, his defense team and supporters maintain his innocence 1 year on, saying that there is no proof, that there was no crime, and that his imprisonment is legally unjustifiable. And Lula released a letter to mark this anniversary. In the letter, he reports being a political prisoner exiled in his own country and said no piece of evidence was produced against him. The leader also said that his only crime was to dedicate an entire life to building a fair country. He thanked his supporters, who he said will not allow his voice to be silenced. Marking the International Day for Mine Awareness, the Colombian Army has delivered a report on the issues of anti-personnel mines to the Special Jurisdiction for Peace. It has been over 2 years since FARC guerrillas and the government signed their peace deal, but landmines continue to claim lives across the country.
For the Foundation 1,000 Victims, the report on the victims of anti-personnel mines, which are mines designed for use against humans, is very important, since it highlights how landmines have claimed more than 11,700 lives over the past 30 years.
This report lists situations, incidents and details where not only members of military have fallen victims to mines, but also civilians, children, teenagers, entire families, who all have had to face this type of situation. Anti-personnel mines don't distinguish between sides and have had been used in various hostile situations.
The report highlights incidents involving landmines between 2003 and 2019. Out of almost 7,500 cases recorded by the Army, over 1,600 soldiers died.
To this date, we have over 5,800 people injured by these anti-personnel mines. And as you can see, some of the wounded were in fact part of our medical support unit.
20 years ago, Carlos Sosa was injured by an anti-personnel mine. Today, he only asks for justice and truth so that incidents like this won't happen again.
This is very difficult. I mean, to move on. Not everyone can overcome this type of incident. This is something that shouldn't continue. There are other ways of achieving political goals or whatever.
Reports like this are important for the Special Jurisdiction for Peace because they help to encourage organizations and civilians to come forward and provide more information about landmines.
This type of restorative justice will involve victims, witnesses, and communities who have been involved in these incidents.
Recently, the International Committee of the Red Cross has reported that the number of victims of explosive devices increased by 300% in 2018. Out of 221 people affected, 128 were civilians, while in 2017, 57 civilians fell victim of these devices.
There is very little information on the location of these mines, and that means the civilian population cannot lead a normal life. But what worries me even more is that the use of these devices dramatically increased last year.
Across Colombia, 13 departments were affected by anti-personnel mines last year, including Nariño, Antioquia, and Arauca.
Now to Europe, the British Prime Minister Theresa May is to visit the German Chancellor and the French President on Tuesday in a last-ditch effort to secure EU support for another extension to Brexit. European Union foreign ministers are meeting in Luxembourg ahead of Wednesday's summit that will decide on May's request for a delay to Brexit until the end of June. Several foreign ministers have said that they will support the extension, but France has voiced strong doubts. An investigation by the Center of Opinion Studies has revealed that almost 80% of Catalans support a referendum to decide their future as a country. The investigation asked Catalans about this option with 78% of approval of the right to self-determination. Nearly 60% were very much in favor, and just over 20% supported the proposition. Also, nearly 7% were not in agreement, nearly 8% were very much opposed to self-determination. The Hungarian State Opera is reportedly asking its white actors to identify as black in order to stage an all-black cast play, causing outrage. They will take part in the play Porgy and Bess, which deals with issues in the black community. Its writers stated that it must be performed by black people only. Creator George Gershwin turned down several proposals for the play, including from singer Al Jolson, known for performing in blackface. The Hungarian State Opera did perform the show in blackface in the 1970s and in the 1980s. With that, we come to the end of this news brief, but you can read more on these stories by going to our website, telesurenglish.net. And you can also join us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.